absolutely struggling with this voiceover, man. Jeez, this is like take 5. I'm not even kidding you. Welcome back to Vermont Scale Customs, everybody. What's going on? So I had an opportunity to take this thing on the indoor course last night. I worked most of the day yesterday getting lights and stuff like that, a little bit of detail work in between all the other stuff that I got going on. Of course, I didn't spend my entire day working on lights. Thank you. Headlights and tail lights, and you'll see those coming up in a bit. I also got that fuel cell cover secured with a tiny little metal strap that attaches to the shock towers. You see that just kind of pokes down inside the shock towers, and that's actually held in place with 2 screws. And those are actually for the old body posts, so there's an idea for you. Anyway, gave these tires another try on this truck, and I'm not unhappy. I'm not displeased with them. I think they do pretty well. Better than what they did on the Comp 24. This vehicle clocks in at 501, 502 grams. That was before the lights went in, so you might want to call it about 510, 512 now. And that's with the wheels and tires on it. I wrapped a piece of lead as well as some copper foil tape to cover up the lead around the inner ring. I didn't weigh each wheel afterwards, but I'm guessing somewhere in the low 20s for each one. And so you probably got about 100 grams sitting in wheels and tires alone all the way around on this thing. And so it keeps it pretty well planted. Brass diff covers on those OGRC straights. It was originally sitting on portals, and I just didn't like those diffs. They were having a lot of problems with every one of the drive shafts that I was running. It just didn't seem to treat those portals correctly. So off those went, and on these went. And so, yeah, I lost a little bit of ground clearance, I think, a little bit of capability in terms of, break over stuff. But, if you keep trying and you find the right line, eventually you make it. But a note on these tires, and I think I've mentioned it in the past, I wish there was a way that I could measure exactly how much of the tread surface is being used, because you can pretty much sell these, as about half used in a couple months, because you're not using, at least like a solid 40 to 50% of the tread. You can see there's dark spots and there's light spots, and all the dark spots are where that contact just simply isn't happening with the surface underneath. So, weird design. I can understand, copying a tire, because these are like the Maxxis Trepadors or something like that. But those don't have alternating height treads. They're all the same height all the way across. And so it's kind of weird that they copied a tire, but they copied it wrong. Anyway, this kind of outdoes a couple of different vehicles on this climb, believe it or not. Both of my FJs, they both can do this, but it takes a few backups and quite a few different tries in the 4-door. This was like 2 backups, and it walked right around. The soft tires seemed to just grab this rock really well. I vented them also, and that was probably the single greatest thing that I've done to these since I've had them, was poking holes in them. While they're soft, they're not allowed to fully compress. They just kind of mush around and sort of move their mass from one side to the next. Once you poke a hole in them, they're actually allowed to, nicely conform and compress over things without just simply sliding off of something or just rolling over it. This doesn't go well. I'm a little too far inside to the diving board surface here. Cliff dive, I should say. I can't get the truck down in there, so it just rolls out. Air conditioning's back on. Gotta love it. It was over 100 in the Midwest yesterday. The National Weather Service said like 98 at midpoint during the day, and I hopped in my vehicle and it said 103. So fight me on that. It's just disgusting outside, so thankfully air-conditioned indoor courses are really where it's at right now, especially during the day. It's crazy outside. But it's supposed to cool back down. We had some gnarly thunderstorms last night, So what this lacks in ground clearance, it makes up for in heart. That 180 51 turn is a nice snappy little motor that's got a ton of torque, and the torque example is coming right up. This thing about sends itself backwards here shortly. But I suddenly find a new line right there. And it just effortlessly walks right back up. That was super easy on the throttle. No I couldn't be happier with that kind of performance, to be honest with you. That line right there kind of made me decide that this thing is really, definitely, it's up there. It's in my top 5 for my 24 scale stuff. It doesn't have all the fancy bells and whistles that all the other trucks before it have, but like I said, it's got a ton of heart, and it actually seems to work pretty well. So one thing I might change is that servo. That's what are those, one of the 6 kilogram ones. And while they're a step up from Emax, what I notice is that it has some sort of short circuit lock on it. And it happens mainly when turning left. It's not a mechanical thing. I do believe it's sort of an electrical thing. Okay, check this out. This is kind of a first for really a bunch of vehicles. Not many have made this trip down this particular section, so I have to give credit to this thing. It makes it out here. You got to do the wiggle thing, getting it down to the position, drive forward a little more, wiggle some more. Air conditioning shuts off, and it still throws the back end over coming off of that, just to kind of give you an indication of how steep that is. The camera does not know justice whatsoever. So props to this truck for pulling that line, and especially as fast and as smooth as what it did. So I'm impressed. For a junk drawer spare parts build full of a bunch of stuff, 4 different kinds of links on a frame that is completely irrelevant to modern RC crawling. The only reason I built this was to have something to put that body and cage on the back, and so what I've come up with so far seems to be working pretty well. I probably could lower everything down and have it sit a little more on the chassis and have it hide some of that stuff a little bit, but like I said, I'm probably going to put some running boards on the side of this, some rock sliders that came with the original CR18. I have the original brackets and sliders, so I'm going to see if I can't make something to work for this. And with stuff like that, I can't complain, and I have no real concerns or qualms about whether or not it has the highest, clearest links, or if it's got a 7 or 8 degree or 12 degree angled skid. It's got a 100% 0 degree angled skid, and it does just fine. I didn't build this to compete. I didn't build this to get into any kind of spit and match about what it can and can't do. I built this simply to have some fun. So, yep. Flexed right out. I'm not a big fan of double barrels, but I will say that in a vehicle like this that doesn't have a ton of ground clearance, having some extra articulation to keep some wheel contact, it works out. Like it or hate it. And I'm also kind of really on the fence about whether or not to throw limiters on the front of this one or not. I got a couple ideas that I might try, but for right now I'm just going to run it as is, because I'm really happy with how it's running, so it doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. It locks this left. Oh, this is what I'm talking about coming up. It gets locked in this left turn here, and I have to just crank the wheel right in order to get it out of it. There it is. You see that? So it's almost like that servo in full left lock. For whatever reason, electronically speaking, that motor just seizes in that spot for a hot second, and it doesn't want to come back out of that position. So it takes kind of really forcing it out. So kind of unique. Makes me want to upgrade the servo a little bit on this, get something a little more robust, I guess. But for now, it's fine. It's okay. I don't want to put any more money in this than I need to at the moment, especially since it seems to be running okay. Yeah, do I need to build this on the TRX4M? I think I don't need to. I'm all set. I'm pretty sure that this runs, in my opinion, probably as equivalently well as, buying yet another platform to add to the collection. So I'm glad I ate up some spare parts, to be honest with you. I'm glad I ate up some stuff that, has just been sitting around forever. And that, yeah, now sits in a truck that works. So coming up on the end, one last climb here after I get situated. I'll take this thing outside one of these days when it's not like 1,000,000 degrees out. Thanks for watching.